We're a nonprofit advocacy group for the St. Johns River.
And our mission is to help protect the river.
Hello, welcome once again to the St. Johns Riverkeeper Show, the most exciting half hour on public access television. I am Jimmy Orth, Executive Director of St. Johns Riverkeeper, and I'm here with my co-host, Shannon Blankenship.
Thank you for having me again. Clearly I did a good job.
Oh, Shannon, you always do a good job. Shannon is the Outreach Director for St. Johns Riverkeeper, and we'll talk a little bit more about what Shannon does and some of the activities coming up. But first, Shannon, why don't you give viewers out there that may not know who we are a little bit of information about St. Johns Riverkeeper?
Sure. Well, St. Johns Riverkeeper is a nonprofit environmental advocacy organization, and our primary mission is to work on behalf of the St. Johns River and actually provide a voice to the St. Johns River. You know, natural resources don't always have people standing up for them and speaking on behalf of them. And so organizations like Riverkeeper, the other riverkeepers throughout the state of Florida, the other waterkeepers throughout the entire, international union now through Waterkeeper Alliance, give waterways a voice, and Lisa Reineman, our St. Johns Riverkeeper, is out there providing a voice for the St. Johns.
Absolutely. And one of the things that folks may not realize is we are privately funded. We're not affiliated with a government agency. Really, our role is to hold government agencies and our elected officials and polluters accountable and making sure that they're protecting our waterways that belong to all of us, the public. But we are a membership-based group, and so all of our funding comes from you, comes from the community, and that your dollars, your joining the group is a vote for us, saying that we want a riverkeeper, we value having an advocate that's looking out for the best interests of our river, and that's what we try to do each and every day. So I encourage you to join. You can go to our website, which is stjohnsriverkeeper.org, and at any time you can learn about how to become a member, all the issues that we're involved in. We frequently have blog posts, tons of events that Shannon will talk about. We also, one of the things people don't realize we do is a lot of education and outreach. And I know one of our co-workers, Jenny Busey, is our education director and does a lot of great work as well.
Yeah. Lisa always likes to say that when she's going and speaking on behalf of the river at any of these public meetings, that herself as one person just isn't loud enough. But being able to talk about how many members we have, how many active volunteers we have, how many supporters we have, whether that's in social media, via Facebook or Twitter, our voice is really only as loud as how many people stand behind her voice. And so learning about some of these issues and getting engaged with us is really critical to supporting and sustaining the St. Johns River as a resource that should be protected in our community and in our watershed. So I'd encourage everyone to definitely visit the website, learn about some of the things that we have, our issues in our blog, some of the events we have coming up, and learn about even some of the education opportunities that we have with Jenny Busey, the education director. I know right now, she's transitioning from the summer sort of, field trips and cleanups and getting back into the fall school year, trying to get out there to different schools to talk to kids about water conservation, about the ecosystems, about, what the St. Johns River means to this resource in this community. And I think another really cool thing that Jenny does is she actually gets kids on the water through some of these boat trips that she tries to put on. So, a lot of kids in Jacksonville, unfortunately, have never even been to the St. Johns River, seen the St. Johns River. And so if you're there at the schools trying to get them to think about, fish and ecosystems and aquatic life, it's really hard to do if they've never seen the St. Johns. So she really fulfills a vital role in, talking to the younger members of our community about why they should care about the St. Johns.
That's right, absolutely. And similar to your role too, but more with adults and older populations to try to get people. The most important thing is that we have educated, informed, and engaged constituents for the river. And that's one of our roles. Is we obviously can't do it alone. We're never going to have enough staff or enough resources by ourselves to do it. We need you. We need the public. We need our kids and adults to all be informed and engaged, and also using the river and getting to know it and exploring it, because I think through those experiences, when you get out on the water and you experience the St. Johns, you learn to love it, you learn to appreciate it, and then you're motivated to take care of it and to be an advocate for it. And so that's one of our goals.
Yeah, and over this past summer and the last few months, we've worked really hard to really bring home that message about recreation on the St. John's. We've had just a record number of events where people are actually on the river, paddling, swimming, utilizing this resource that we have downtown, not just aesthetically, because it is a gorgeous river to look at, but actually using it for, a form of recreation, a form of athleticism, for a form of sustenance for fishermen. And so that's why I think right now it's really alarming and upsetting some of the numbers we've been hearing about the algae bloom currently plaguing the St. John's.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that, while we encourage people to get out and use the river, unfortunately, our river is sick, to just put it simply. There are a lot of pollution problems that still affect the St. John's. While the St. John's certainly isn't dead, it is sick and needs our help and attention, and we need to try to restore its health. And so one of the things that you mentioned, the algal blooms, have been very alarming, especially this late in the year.
Yeah.
Here we are in late October, and we're still seeing algal blooms throughout the lower basin. And when I say lower basin, I'm talking about the part of the river from about Walaka to the mouth. But we've been getting reports from Clay County, St. Johns County, and Duval County. And what we did is we tested some of that algae not too long ago because we were so concerned about it, and we had some alarming results.
Yeah, I had a phone call recently on the phone, a woman, she wanted to go out and do a full moon paddle just the other week. She's currently pregnant and was wondering about the health concerns. And I felt so ashamed that I had to tell her that actually in Julington Creek right now, I don't think it's safe to get out on the St. Johns River. Our website is a great resource to see sort of the plethora of different, potential side effects from coming in contact with the algae. And also, I think too, it's important to remind people that the algae is something that, although we shouldn't try to come in contact with, generally, being near the St. Johns River is not going to, negatively impact you, especially if you're not near some of the algae. But some of the numbers we got back about that algae bloom were alarming, and especially in the areas with the smaller tributaries. People that live on some of these smaller creeks, they're feeling the effects, and you can't just distance yourself from one of those smaller creeks if you live alongside it. If you have pets, animals that sort of jump in the creek and play in the creek, those are the exact types of health risks that people are currently facing.
Or children, yeah.
And children, because of what we've let happen to our river.
Right. Well, and let me back up for just a minute, because I want to make sure everybody understands when we're talking about this. Algae, blue-green algae, is obviously natural. It's something that naturally occurs in our waterways. But unfortunately, what happens is when we put too many nutrients, in other words, nitrogen and phosphorus, that go into our waterways, they can't assimilate those nutrients, and what happens is it essentially acts as fertilizer. A lot of it is from fertilizer, but it acts as a fertilizer and causes that algae. It's a food for the algae, and it grows exponentially, and it can actually cover the surface of the river. And what you'll see is, if you encounter an algal bloom, and we talk about this, it'll be literally like green slime across the surface. Now, what that does is it can cause a lot of ecological impacts. It can actually reduce the oxygen in the water for fish and cause fish kills. It can also block the sunlight from reaching the submerged aquatic vegetation, the plants that live below the surface of the water. And so it can really affect the habitat dramatically. But then also it emits toxins in some cases. And those toxins can be harmful to wildlife, but also to human health, as you mentioned. And that's what we were concerned about. Is we did some toxin tests, not us, but we sent it to a lab. And the lab results came back, and some of the results that we found were 100 times higher than the World Health Organization recommendation for recreational use. And so that was really startling to us because that can obviously be very dangerous.
And I think the other, bizarre thing that's happening right now, an unfortunate thing that's happening right now, is it was 100 times more than 1 month earlier in September. So, our October numbers, whereas typically, we're accustomed to suffering through in the depths of the heat of the summer here in Florida, some form of algae in our river. This late in the game is really unfortunate. It's really upsetting, and it's really hurting a lot of the businesses along the St. John's that are supported by recreation and fishing, charter fishing, views. All of those things right now are currently under attack because of the green monster.
Absolutely, and one of the things that was, you mentioned hurting businesses. For instance, recently, then after we did our sampling and the results were so alarming, the St. John's River Water Management District decided to do some additional testing. Well, they tested an algal bloom that was occurring in Doctors Lake Marina, which is down in Clay County. Those results came back, and one of their sample results was 200 times the World Health Organization recommended limits. And so that is a business that their business is obviously hurt when their marina is covered in slime, and they have to notify their patrons and customers that, hey, it might be harmful for you to be around this algae or in this algae and to come in contact with it. And that's exactly what the owner did. She did the responsible thing. She put up notices and let folks know, because what the toxins can do is can cause respiratory problems, because it actually can aerosolize and you can breathe it in, and it can affect your respiratory. If you ingest the algae and too much of it, it can actually cause liver damage. It causes flu-like symptoms in some people. We actually had an older couple that was reported. They were out on their dock and they literally came down with like flu-like symptoms after being exposed to it. So it can have serious implications. And so what we always recommend, just, I want to make sure people know, is that you have to take precautions too.
Yeah, and I think that, when it comes to the businesses affected by this bloom, it wasn't like the government shutdown where, they just decided to close their doors. It's a questionable call. This is people's health. This is people's, ability to remain, sort of make good health decisions and remain healthy. It's a really difficult decision as to whether or not you should be allowing people out on boats, on jet skis, at the marina, on their docks. And so I don't think we should ever have to make these calls. I don't think that these are decisions, that people should have to be facing. And so I really hope that we're able to wake up a little bit about some of the, the many causes of the algae bloom, and maybe try and change some of the uses that we have of fertilizer, of feral cats, of stray dogs, cleaning up after your pets, wastewater treatment, failing septic systems. Some of these are issues that our state needs to take on. A lot of these are issues our cities need to take on, but a lot of these are issues that we can do in our own yard too. And if we are concerned about this algae bloom, then I think we should really start doing that.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think it really is. We have to take action if we're going to solve these problems, and we can't just leave it up to our government, which obviously they play a major role in the regulatory agencies, but we as citizens also play a major role. On our website, you can actually learn a lot about this. You can learn about these issues. We have some really good blog posts about some of the testing results that we found. You can also go and click from there, from our website, to our Facebook page, and you can see a lot of these pictures. We posted a lot of pictures of some of these blooms that were quite dramatic.
Yeah, members have been writing to us, showing pictures that they're seeing from their dock, and some of these images are really dramatic. I think it's a great place to sort of go on and just see all over our watershed what the waterways have been looking like over the September and October month here on the St. John's.
Exactly, and then also on our website we have a whole river-friendly section, and in that section you can learn about all the things that you can do to be, quote, river-friendly, meaning things you can do to reduce your impact on the health of the river. One, by using fertilizers responsibly. Of course, things like, using water, conserving water, and irrigating efficiently. All of those things that we need to do personally to take personal responsibility, because Now, one of the problems that we have, I always like to quote Dr. White, because he always says the problem now is so many people live in the watershed of the river, it's like death by a thousand cuts. So all of our impacts cumulatively add up to a big problem. And that all of us, if we do our part to try to reduce our impact, we can make a big dent in this problem and hopefully resolve it. So as you said, we shouldn't be having to make these decisions. We shouldn't have to worry about whether our kids or our pets can play in the water or whether or not we can eat the fish that we catch from the St. John. So we're working hard, I can promise you, to try to make sure that doesn't happen. We've been fighting for tough nutrient criteria standards, which is, I know, a lot of words to say, basically pollution limits to limit the amount of nutrients, the nitrogen and phosphorus that's going into the St. John's. And we've also been working very hard to educate the community about the things that we can all do through our River Friendly program. And that's one of the things Shannon has done so well with, is really engaging the community, getting out there with some of these River Friendly programs. We'll do it again too in the spring, so you have to look for it. We had a lot of fun with it this past year.
Yeah. Yeah, it is fun. March is a great time of year to start talking to people about how to prevent the summer algae bloom or the fall algae bloom that occurs on the St. Johns River. And so I love March, being able to be out there in the community at various events and educational opportunities to talk about how to be river friendly in your own yard. So we're starting planning now, and I'm really excited to gear up for that.
Right, and you don't just do it in 1 month or one day, or this is something that you really have to live. We always kind of talk about a river-friendly lifestyle, which I think is something that's so important, is that we incorporate these practices into our daily routine and our daily lives. It becomes part of the culture that we value the St. John's, and as a result, we do our part to be responsible and demonstrate that we care. And so I encourage you to go to the website and learn a lot more about this issue. There's also a lot of other issues coming up. We have been, seems like, slammed lately with so many different issues and potential threats to the St. John's, and one of the things we try to do consistently with these is try to really evaluate the impacts and make sure that the public is fully informed about these things. And a good example is the dredging issue. I know we've talked about this on previous shows, but that's moving forward. Actually, tomorrow is the deadline for commenting. It would be October 24th, so you're going to all be watching this after the deadline period has ended. But you can be assured that we'll have our comments that we submit, the formal comments we submit to the Army Corps of Engineers, will be on our website, and you can access those and read them so you can better understand our concerns. But the bottom line is that we're talking about deepening the St. Johns River from the mouth to about the Dames Point Bridge, about 13 miles, and widening it in sections, and going from 40-foot depth to 47 feet. That's the proposal, which would mean you'd remove 18 million cubic yards of sediment and rock, because they'd also have to blast into the limestone at the bottom of the river. So this could potentially have big impacts on the St. John's, and that's one of the things we want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that not only that it doesn't happen, but just that people really understand, if you're going to decide to support the proposal, you should know what you're giving up. You should know what the risks are. You should know what the impact to not just the river, but your pocketbook, your business, your waterfront recreational weekend trips. How are you going to be impacted by this decision to sort of dramatically shift the shape and the form of the St. Johns River?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's perfect. Well said, Shannon, because I think one of the things that's so critical is that what we're trying to do is make sure all the facts are on the table. We need to know, as a community, we need to make an informed decision. This is a huge decision. Could affect the future health of the St. John's, also could affect the future of our economy. Now, I know there's a lot of promises about the economic returns from this and how it's going to benefit our economy, which a lot of that we're finding is really very speculative. But what we do know is it's going to cost a lot of money to do it. And that's something that's certain. And so when we're going to be making what could be $1 billion investment locally, we need to make sure that it's worth the investment and that investment is not going to harm one of our greatest natural resources and most valuable assets that we have, the St. Johns River.
One of these days it would be great if we could shift the conversation to, if I had $1 billion to help fix the St. Johns River, what would I do? Because that would be a great, sort of roundtable discussion, Jacksonville City discussion, watershed-wide discussion. There's so much that we could do to really, really, turn our river around, take care of the green monster, get some downtown recreation, and really shape and change how we view the St. John's in this community. And I have hope that one of these days that will be the roundtable discussion we're having.
Right. And we always acknowledge the benefits of the port to our community, but we also have to recognize that the value and the economic impact of the river goes well beyond the impacts that the port provides. That this river is critical to our local economy, and that by investing in the St. John's, and that's exactly what you're talking about, is if we invest in this resource and take advantage of this tremendous asset that we have, it could pay off huge dividends for our community in terms of creating a really stable and thriving economy, and also providing recreational opportunities, enhancing our quality of life, so many things. We wouldn't have to worry about those algal blooms. We spend $1 billion, I bet. And that's what the goal is ultimately, is to have a clean and healthy St. John's.
Yeah, so I am a fortunate St. John's Riverkeeper associate here. I get to do 2-day boat trips where I actually take people from Jacksonville who are used to seeing the algae blooms and the cargo containers and sort of the mixture of dilemmas facing the St. John's here in Jacksonville, and I get to take them to the most beautiful, beautiful portion of our St. John's River and do a 2-day boat trip. So we actually get to cover, I think it's like 150 miles that we go almost, from Palatka to Sanford and then back, from Sanford back to Palatka. We cover so much territory, and every single time I do this trip, we do it in October, we do it in April. So April, the spring trip's going to be coming up. People can go to our website if they want to learn more about how to sign up and register. But we cover the St. John's River watershed from the lower basin through the entire middle basin, and even approach the beginning of the upper basin of our river. So, I mean, it's just a completely different river in that portion. We go from the wide sort of, deciduous, almost, fall-like trees we have right now, and then we get into the swampy middle basin where it's covered in bald cypress sort of swooping over our banks. It's much more narrow, and over, people get off the boat and they say, I had no idea that the river, was this amazing, was this, sort of different, and they just love it. And this is how we get people to care about the river, is by taking them to these parts of the river. And so the 2-day Eco Heritage Boat Trip is a tradition that I know the organization will continue to do because of how important it is to get people out on our river to see why we try so hard to protect it.
Well, and that's exactly the point, I think, is that when we're talking about the dredging or all these other issues, and we talk about taking into consideration the value of the river, I think one of these trips really is eye-opening for so many people. We've had, like you said, so many of these passengers have gone on one of these multi-day trips and said, wow, I never knew what a river we have. I knew it was beautiful, I knew it was wonderful, but I didn't know it was that wonderful. And I think when you see it and the diversity of it, and that's the thing, when I took this job in 2004, and I was born and raised in Jacksonville, spent a lot of time on the river in the Jacksonville area, I never was really on the river south of Palatka. And when I took this trip for the first time, I was blown away. I could not believe it was the same river, and it was so magical that it just, I couldn't believe that I'd never experienced this and that I'd never taken the time to explore this part of the river. So that part of the river is so beautiful, and it's so important. And we've been doing these trips now since 2003. How many trips have we done now?
That was the 36th that I just finished.
So the ones we just finished a few weeks ago, we did 35 and 36,
35
right?
and 36, yeah.
So, and we've taken probably 1,500, 1,600 people on trips, on these multi-day trips. Now, some of those are repeat customers, because there's people that they want to go every time.
I know. We've had the last few trips, I've had people on there for their third time. One person or one couple on there for their third time in a row. They just have made it, an annual or biannual event that they come on this boat trip. And I understand why. It is a vacation, a getaway that's an hour drive. You don't have to go anywhere, and then you don't have to do anything because I take care of all your food, your catering, your meals, your hotel reservations, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really a way to escape on the St. Johns. And I think, you know, in the face of all of these issues impacting the St. Johns River right now, being able to take that sort of getaway on the river is exactly what you need. You know, we see the issues impacting the river, but you know what? It's also a really great magical river. And so if you get to sort of take a cruise in the right spot and you get to see that, then I feel like you really sort of you know, invigorate yourself to want to fight to protect it.
Right, and one of the things that's so great about it too is it's so educational. We have great speakers, we have historical reenactors. Billy Bartram, the famous naturalist, comes on board, and we have Bill Belleville, the wonderful author who wrote The River of Lakes, one of the most definitive books about the St. Johns River. We have Bill Dreggers, who Bill is I think fourth generation Floridian, who is a cultural historian and tells some great stories. We have just great speakers. Of course, the Riverkeeper comes on and talks about some of the issues. So you learn so much in the process too. But you also see some just incredible wildlife, and that's what we're going to actually look at right now. We're going to take a quick view, give you a glimpse on what you can expect and see on these trips, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about it in a minute. I tell you, Shannon, every time I see that, it makes me want to get back on that boat and go. And this year, I didn't get to go. As a matter of fact, Shannon won't let me go anymore. She just goes and runs the trip. She doesn't want me getting in the way. So I haven't even been the last couple times on these trips.
I do. I think, you know, I break out a little bit more without my boss there with me. The passengers have always admitted that I am more fun when you're not standing there next to me correcting me on.
Well, what about my great jokes? Come on.
I know, it's true. You tell some pretty good. I try to recreate them and I mess them all up. So we do miss out on your jokes. But no, if people can't get away for 2 whole days and do a boat trip with us, then I also try and get people out on the river here in downtown Jacksonville for just 2-hour boat trips. Now, recently we had a change. I don't know if anyone noticed, but in downtown Jacksonville, we have a new water taxi company, the Jacksonville Water Taxi. They're currently, they're the previous ownership of the Baltimore Water Taxi, and they're bringing that expertise down here to Jacksonville to really try and enhance the idea of the St. Johns River being a form of commuter traffic, to avoid, you know, having to use your car to either get to the Jags games or just to enjoy downtown, from the landing to the Chart House to the Museum of Science and History to the Riverside Arts Market. The Jacksonville Water Taxi is a great resource for us. And so the first Saturday of each month, I try and sign people up to take them out on a little tour of our downtown and talk to them about what you're seeing, some of the history, what's happening with the river, what's good for the river, what's bad for the river, and just show people this great resource we have right here in downtown. I'll start that up in 2014 in January, and so people can visit our website, events, see how to sign up. And it's a great way to introduce you, if you can't do 2 full days, to just a 2-hour trip on the St. Johns.
Well, yeah, and I think the important thing is just get out there and enjoy this beautiful resource that we have. I mean, hopefully the Green Monster, we keep calling it the Green Monster. Somebody emailed me and said, what's the Green Monster? And we call it the Green Monster because the algal bloom. We actually had a documentary which many people saw a few years ago that talked about this, and we used that metaphor of a green monster to refer to the algal bloom. But hopefully that will be gone in November, and we won't see that as the weather gets cooler. And it'll be a good time to get back out on the St. Johns, explore it. The weather's wonderful usually, and there's so many great places to go. Whether it be a 2-hour trip with us coming up in 2014, or just getting out and going to one of the parks. We have a lot of information on our website about that as well. So check out our website. We have information about all the parks, how to get involved. The key is get out there, get involved, get engaged with the river, learn about the river, explore it, and get involved with these issues because we can't do it without you. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you next month.
Is to help protect the river.